You're listening to a program from the ALOUD archives. ALOUD is a series of dynamic conversations, readings, and performances that take place at the historic Central Library in downtown Los Angeles. ALOUD is presented by the Library Foundation of Los Angeles, which supports the LA Public Library. To learn more, please visit lfla.org/aloud.
The first to read will be Majid Naficy, born in Iran in 1953. His first collection of poems in Persian, called In the Tiger's Skin, was published in 1967. 1 year later, his book of literary criticism, Poetry as a Structure, appeared, and in 1970, he wrote a children's book, The Secret of Words, which won a national award in Iran. In the 70s, Majid was politically active against the Shah's regime. After the 1979 revolution, when the new regime began to suppress the opposition and many people, including his first wife and his brother, were executed, he fled Iran in 1983 to spend 1.5 years in Turkey and France, after which time he settled in Los Angeles. Since then, he has published 3 collections of poems, After the Silence, Sorrow of the Border, and Poems of Venice, as well as a book of essays called In Search of Joy, a critique of male-dominated, death-oriented culture in Iran. All his works have been written in Persian. He holds his doctorate in Near Eastern languages and cultures from the University of California, Los Angeles, and is currently a co-editor of Daftraha-i Shamba, a Persian literary journal published in Los Angeles, where he presently lives. He has recently prepared 2 books, including a collection of his poetry translated into English, which is entitled Muddy Shoes. Our second reader is Anchee, born in 1957 in Shanghai, China, and is the author of Red Azalea, a memoir published in 1994, and Catherine, a novel published in 1995. She grew up in China during the Cultural Revolution, described her experiences in the memoir Red Azalea. At age 17, Anchee was sent to Red Fire Farm, a collective of some 13,000 workers near the East China Sea. She lived there for 3 years, enduring hardship, laboring to grow cotton in unyielding soil. She eventually escaped Red Fire Farm when talent scouts discovered her and recruited her to work as a movie actress at the Shanghai Film Studio. With the assistance of actress Joan Chin, a friend from acting school, Anchee came to the United States in 1984 as a student at the Art Institute of Chicago. In a writing course at the Institute, Anchee wrote about Red Fire Farm. She sent the story to the literary magazine Granta, where it was published in the spring of 1992. Based on this story, an agent sold Pantheon the rights to Anchee's autobiography. The book became an international bestseller. Anchee finished writing Red Azalea on Christmas Day, 1992. Of this moment, Anchee says, "My whole body was shaking. After a year of living my past life and having to face myself, I was so driven and so glad to be given the opportunity." Her work has appeared in Entertainment Weekly, New York Times, The New Yorker, Publishers Weekly, and many more prestigious and important magazines and journals. She is currently working on a new novel and is now living in Los Angeles. Our third reader will be Said, born in Tehran, Iran in 1947. He was forced to leave Iran at age 17 and has lived in exile in Munich, Germany for 33 years. In Germany, he combined his literary interest with political democratic engagement, thus making his return to Iran impossible. After the fall of the Shah in 1979, Said visited Iran. However, faced with the regime of the mullahs, he saw no chance for a new beginning in his home country. Then he once again returned to Germany to exile. He has a long list of prestigious awards, including City of Munich's Literary Award for 1986, House of Authors Scholarship Award 1990, and the Award for the Advance of Literature 1991. His publications include Poems of Love 1989, Then I Will Scream Until Silence 1990, Where I Die Shall Be My Exile 1994, and his most recent work, The Long Arm of the Mullahs, Notes from My Exile 1995. This work is a document of barbaric crimes, but also of undaunted humanity, a book which accuses and boasts courage despite one's own helplessness when faced with the machinations of those in power, not simply to accept everything and, above all, not to forget. He's presently a writing fellow at Via Aurora Foundation for European American Relationships. His reading today, he will read two of poems in German, and actor Peter Pierce will read the translations, and then Zaid will return again back to the stage to read another poem in German. So let us begin with our first writer, Majid Naficy. Thanks.
Hi, thank you, Alhamra. My last name is pronounced Naficy. The first poem that I read is in memory of my first wife, Exiled, who was executed in January 7, 1982. In that khaki coat. In that khaki coat, you looked beautiful, small, slender, with bony cheeks. Throughout this battle, I, a man, followed you, you, a woman, and you wore that khaki coat, not for war as men do, no. You looked beautiful in it, small, slender, with bony cheeks. January 7, 1986. 3 gifts. One day, my father called us and said, I have 3 gifts for you. A red heart, an hourglass, and, oh God, I do not remember the other one. Mehdi took the heart, opened its 2 halves, and strummed the string of its chamber. I took the hourglass, and along with its white sands fell from one half to the other, asking myself, what can be done in 3 minutes? andSAID, at age 10, went to Paris for heart surgery, and at age 29, he was executed in Tehran. I remember him. He had red cheeks and strong hands. March 1994. Where is my dagger? This is for my sister Nushin. She was captured with her husband. Her husband was executed, and she bore Cheshme in the prison. And when she was released from the prison, I asked her by phone, do you go to mountain as before? And she said something that I have expressed it in this poem. Where is my dagger? The snows melt without you. The bushes grow without you. The summits conquered without you. The mountain is not dead without you. Or perhaps you are alive within me. Where is my dagger? Either I have to draw this picture everywhere, or I have to take this pain from my heart. The snows are still fresh. The bushes are buried beneath the earth. The summits are asleep within clouds. Without you, this mountain is never alive. Where is my dagger? August 29, 86. Narcissus. My love has a narcissus in her mouth that she brought with her from Iranian prisons. I know that in the face of moon at night behind bars, one can see the image of a flower, and in the mornings, the blueness of the sky, one can hear the flapping, migrating crane. I know that behind eyelids and in a fist, and between each execution, and in the whiteness of last letters and message in the knocks on the wall, and the dewy fringes of sorrow, and the ripped garment of naked joy, and the empty holes of pain, and the twilight of hope, and the hidden summit of pride, one can, yes, one can hide spring. However, I wonder in those dark cells how one can grow a narcissus which retain its whiteness against the stainness of blood. Let me read the last part again. However, I wonder in those dark cells how one can grow a narcissus that retain its whiteness against the stains of blood. July 15, 1995. I am a refugee. This is for Zohre. She wanted to flee Iran with her husband Morteza, but Morteza was detained 2 days before they got out of Iran. And she had to flee Iran with their 8-month-old Rosa, their daughter. And this is her story. I am a refugee. I am left alone in this big elevator with the dream of a piece of land in my head. Down there, the smell of this expanse of lawns, seesaws, swings, roller coasters, and the honk of the ice cream truck, refreshing. Up there, a letter from Iran, the old pictures, the hard French spelling, and an unwashed dishes, depressing. I am a refugee. I heard the news of Morteza's execution in Fayez, where the telephone never stops ringing. In the living room, we put his picture on the walls, and along with Chilean refugees, we hold a moment of silence. Rosa was impatient, and no one knew French. Since then, 4 years have passed. Now, Rosa speaks French, and my hair grows gray. My neighbors are all Arab workers. Every morning, we take the small kids to school and come back with big baguettes. Sometimes we get together at CGT party and smile at each other in crowded dance, the firework, and the political films. The weight of Rosa does not allow me to watch the defeat of fascism. At that time, she was 8 months old. All along the way, someone was pulling me back, but I did not let go of the horse mane. All the hills were full of flowers, and the Kurdish guides whispered ceaselessly. Istanbul was only a hotel for me, with the constant coming and going of refugees, the water getting cut off, and the police raids. Now I am in Lyon, Lenin Boulevard, building 23. Have I left something somewhere? I push 9 and come back. But when the door opens, in the dark hall, I find nothing but the neighbor's barking dog. I come back. Hurry up, Rosa will get impatient. 2 black eyes look at me, and an open mouth asks me, "Kill a Taj, madame?" I push the button and stand silent. Is there a piece of land where I can find peace? May 20th, 1987. Return. I wrote this for Azad and my ex-wife, Esmat. Maltepe is a popular Turkish cigarette. You move your right arm toward me. I lay my left cheek upon it. You close your eyes, and I encircled you with my right arm. Your eyelids are borderless, and your hair, as always, exudes light, pride. I see you in the dim light of the room, galloping horses along with me to pass the border into Turkey. Your hair glows in the sun, and the snow reaches halfway of your legs. We have lost our way, and the Kurdish guide seemed to be worried. You get down from the horse, hold the reins, and draw us toward the last border village. The Kurdish partisans above waves from their embarkment and call back their wild dogs. Your hair glows in the sun, and the snow drips from your shoulders. I put my boots next to yours and surrender my dead feet to the wooden fireplace. The partisans lay their Uzis on the carpet, and the room fills with smiles and golden teeth. I put down my hot teacup and light my first Maltepe. Now 10 years have passed since then. We have separated from each other many times, but we have found ourselves together again. I take a wisp of your hair in my mouth and close my eyes. From the next room comes the sound of a piano. I see Azad, Tiny's finger tripping on the black and white keys. Mr. Turtle, see him go, walking there kind of slow, waddling side to side, going back to the sea. Today is Christmas, and you have bought him a big piano. I say to myself, you naughty boy, play cuckoo, who is calling his mate from faraway forest. I see his pride hair in the sun and the tiny turtles dripping from her fingers. Mr. Turtle is going back to the sea. Mr. Turtle, mi re do, mi la so, fa si mi re do, mi re do, mi la so, fa lo sa, mi re do. December 25, 1993. to Mexican immigrants. I wanted to include poems which show my new environment, and I hope that we have time to read some of them. To Mexican immigrants. On 4th Street, where the one catches the 9, it was only me who brought 2 lines together. The line going downtown carried the sleepy immigrant men to work. The other line turned round and dropped the maids off at the wealthy mansions and me at the foot of a hill. All day long in the canyon, I was thinking, when will these immigrant workers sit on the same line? October 1986. Sands. The sands of the sea cling to my feet and seek their past. In Temescal Canyon. What dialect do you have, bird? Which clan are you from, flower? The bird does not know Persian, and the flower does not talk. Ah, where is Dad, who teaches me names? 1991. San Sebastian Gomera. I wrote this for Christopher Columbus, and that's where he set off. Whatever I have stored is rotting, and my soul becomes hateful to my skin. Where is my India, the land of spice and perfume, where the green parrot recites for you the knowledge of the years, and the green rains of the jungle washes off your sorrow? My inmates, gather from everywhere, raise the sail, and break through the waves. The day is sunny, and the good omen dolphin shakes their back under the water. San Sebastian Gomera, San Sebastian Gomera. Inside me, the sun is rotting, and the earth and all its vineyard and knowledge of the years, and the wealth of her gray hair. Let us pull anchor and sail beyond this rotten atlas. Perhaps this time we will find our India. 1992. Sidewalks. I like sidewalks. Alas, today no one takes them seriously. I do not see children playing marbles on them, or women smiling at one another behind fences. Only I see men with arrogance lock their cars and jingles their heavy keyrings. I do not belong to today because I neither drive a car nor have a job. I walk without haste, and I think of sidewalks which, along with yellow leaves, slowly decay. 92. Childhood landscape. I cannot see from here my childhood landscape. Every morning in my window frame, it was Mont Sofa with its high hump and its invisible leash in my impatient hands. The bus. This is the last one that I read. I think I won't have enough more time for others. One explanation: Hafiz was a 13th century lyrist, Persian lyrist, who used to say, he has a verse which says, sit by the river and look at the rhythm of the life. So keep that in mind. One day, I should write a poem about buses and talk about a man who always sleeps behind me, a woman who reads a newspaper, and the whiteness of her neck draws me towards her. A student is wearing a backpack and listening to his Walkman, and a homeless who talks to himself loud and sometimes laughs. Amigo, amigo, amigo. What if this woman sits on my lap and shares her warmth with me? I like the voice of this driver. He announces each stop, and his loudspeaker is always on, broadcasting the whispering of each newcomer throughout the bus. Outside, trees are swaying in wind, and I pick pieces from each block. Bus, what should I call you? Is there not a sign of old caravanserai in you? Every day at 20th Street, I have a date with you. When you come from distance, I stand up and signals you. And when you come close, I distance myself to escape the dust. I know the world is only a passageway, and the sad Hafiz liked to sit at Ruknabad brook. I too, bored with passion, and find a seat. Can't one hear the murmur of a brook in your narrow aisle? And at night, walking back home, when I pass over the freeway, are not the waves of the car like reminder of the passage of life? A baby is waving behind the seat. I duck my head and say, peekaboo, peekaboo. We have passed Westwood. I pull the bell and get up. I have to walk back a few stops. One can hum this song on the sidewalk too. And I have to thank Harriet, who helped me to translate these poems from Persian to English, and I have a 30-second poem for her. My American Mother. My American mother says, in the next circle of life, I want to become a tall shade tree. I look at her little body that still remains upright on her steady cane, and her kind eyes, which like the eyes of my mother in Iran, shine, and I know that I want to become a bird. Thank you.
What time is it now? I can't read your watch. No, it's okay. It's just it's 3, 4, okay. I was raised on the teachings of Mao and on the opera of Madame Mao, Comrade Jiang Qing. I became a leader of Little Red Guard in elementary school. This was during the Great Proletarian Cultural Revolution, when red was my color. My parents lived like, as the neighbors described them, a pair of chopsticks, always in harmony. My father was an instructor of industrial technical drawing at Shanghai Textile Institute, although his true love was astronomy. My mother was a teacher at the Shanghai Middle School. She taught whatever the Communist Party asked, one semester in Chinese and the next in Russian. My parents both believed in Mao and the party, just like everybody else in the neighborhood. They had 4 children, each 1 year apart. I was born in 1957. We lived in the city on South Luxuriant Road in a small 2-story townhouse occupied by 2 families. The house was left by my grandfather, who had died of tuberculosis right before I was born. I was an adult from the age of 5. There was nothing unusual. The kids I played with all carried their family's little ones on their backs, tied with a piece of cloth. The little ones played with their own snot, while we played hide and seek. I was put in charge of managing the family because my parents were in their working units all day, just like everyone else's parents. I called my sisters and brother my children because I had to pick them up from the kindergarten and nursery school, while I myself was only a kindergartner. I was 6 when my sister Blooming was 5, my second sister Coral was 4, and my brother Space Conqueror was 3. My parents made a careful choices in the names they gave us. They were considered eccentric because the neighbors named their children God of Red, Big Leap, Long March, Red Star, Liberation, Revolution, New China, Road of Russia, Resist USA, Patriot Foreigner, Matchless Red Soldier, etc. My parents had their own ideas. First, they called me Ling Xuan, rising sun at a mountain. They dropped it because Mao was considered the only sun. After further contemplation, they named me Anchee, Jade of Peace. Also, it sounded like the Chinese translation of the English word angel. They registered me with it. Blooming and Coral, my sisters, were named after the sound of qi, jade. There were 2 reasons why my parents named my brother Space Conqueror. One was that my father loved astronomy. The second was to respond to Mao's call that China would soon erect its own spaceship. As I understood it, my parents were working at that was saving the world. Every evening, I would pick up the children and fight with the kids on the block all the way home. It was like eating a regular meal that I got a purple cheek or a bloody nose. It did not bother me too much, although I was scared of crossing a traffic light and dark alleys. I learned not to show my fear because I had to be a model for the children, to show them what bravery meant. After I arranged for the children to play by themselves in the living room, I went to set up the stove to cook dinner. It always took me a long time to light the stove because I did not understand that wood and coals needed air to burn. I stuffed the stoves as I sang songs of Mao quotations. One time, when I tried many times and the stove would not light, I lost my patience. I went out to play, thinking that the stove was not burning. Then a kid came and told me that there was smoking came out of my house window. And this happened 3 times. I tried to put the children to sleep where the sky was still bright. The children's little feet kicked cotton blankets and made new holes over the old. The blankets soon became rags. When the room quieted down, I would lean on the windowsill, staring at the entrance to the lane, waiting to my parents to appear. I watched the sky turn deep blue, Venus rising, and I would fall asleep by the window. In 1967, when I was 10 years old, we moved. It was because our downstairs neighbors accused us of having a bigger space than they had. They said, "How can a family of 6 occupy 4 rooms while a family of 11 has only 1? The revolution is about fairness." They came up with a chamber pot and poured everything on our blankets. And there were no police. The police station was called a revisionist mechanism and had been shut down by the revolutionaries. The Red Guards had begun looting houses. No one answered our call for help. The neighbors watched. The downstairs neighbor kept bothering us. We cleaned the shit night after night, swallow insults in meek submission. The downstairs family became uncontrollable. They threatened to harm us children when our parents were not at home. They said that their second daughter had a history of mental illness, and therefore they could not be responsible for what she was going to do. The second daughter came up and showed me an axe that she had just sharpened. She said that she could chop my head into like a watermelon. She asked me if I would like her to do it. I said, "You wait here and I will tell you whether I will like it or not later." I grabbed my sisters and brother and we ran and squeezed ourselves into a closet all day. One day, when my mother stepped in the door after work, the second daughter jumped on her. I saw them wrestle in the stairwell. Mother was crushed on the floor, and was slashed with scissors. I was in shock. I stood right next to my mother and saw blood pouring down her face and wrists. I wanted to scream, but I had no voice. The second daughter went downstairs and cut her own wrists with scissors. She then rushed out to the curious crowd outside the door, bloody hands raised high in the air. She shouted, "Look at me! I'm a worker who was attacked by a bourgeoisie intellectual. Comrades, this is a political murder." Her family members came out. They shouted, "A debt of blood must be paid by blood." My father said, "We must move. We must escape." He wrote little notes describing our house and what we would like in exchange. He stuck the notes on the tree trunks by the streets. The next day, a truck arrived by our door, fully loaded with furniture. 5 men got out of the truck and said they had come to exchange their house with us. My father said, "We hadn't looked around for our choice yet." The men said, "Our house is perfect for you, and it's ready for you to move in." My father said, "We didn't know what it looked like." The man said, "Go and take a look at now. You will like it." My father asked, "How many rooms?" They said, 3, very nice, Shanghai standard. My mother said, "Do you know that our downstairs neighbor's second daughter is mentally ill?" The man said, "It would not be a problem." They said that they had a father and sons, all workers at Shanghai steel factory. The sons needed rooms to get married. They wanted the rooms in a hurry. My father said, "Please let us think about it." And the man said, "We'll wait outside your door while you're making up your mind." My father said, "You can't do that." The man said, "No problem." My parents decided to take a look at the man's house on Shanxi Road. I was asked to guard the house while my parents were gone. I was doing my homework when I saw the man started to unload their furniture. After that, they began to move our furniture. I went up to them and said, "My parents aren't back yet." The man said, "They would like to help us while they still have the truck. There's nowhere you can borrow such a truck by the time you think you're ready to move." They said, Are you going to move all this stuff with your bare little hands? This is after I was sent to the farm. I was among those ordered to attend military training program organized by the farm's headquarters. I was glad that I was considered politically reliable. The program was a series of intensive courses on shooting, handling grenades, and combat. Yan said she would not pass us until we pickled in our own sweat. We were also called to go on midnight sieges when we had to pull ourselves out of bed and be ready to leave with our rifles and flashlights in 3 minutes. One night in the early summer, I was awakened at midnight. The platoon leader called for me at my window, and within minutes I was off with the group. The air felt like water, smoothing my face. We moved briskly along, jogging through the reeds. When we reached the wheat fields, a load order was given in a whisper. I snapped awake. This was the first order to use live ammunition. Something serious had happened. I loaded my gun. And then I heard Yan's voice. She ordered us to lie down, then to advance. It was a killer's voice. We began crawling through the wheat. It was hard to see. The wheat whipped us, leaving its tiny needles all over me. I held my gun tightly. The male soldier in front of me stopped crawling and passed back a standby order. I lay there, holding my breath and listening. The insects began to sing and the wheat smelled sweet. The night was still. Mosquitoes began to bite me through my clothes. There was noise in the distance. Then silence. I thought the noise had been my imagination. After about a minute, I heard the noise again. It was 2 sounds. One was a man's and the other was a woman's murmuring. I heard a soft and muted cry, and then my shock. I recognized the voice as Little Green's. My only thought was that I could not let Little Green be called like this. She was my best friend, the only heir in our stifling room. She had never told me anything about being involved with the men, though I could understand why. It would be shameful to admit. A good female comrade was supposed to devote all her energy, her youth, to the revolution. She was not permitted even to think about men until her late 20s, when marriage would be considered. I thought about consequences that Little Green would have to bear if she were caught. I could see her future ruined right here. She would be abandoned by the society and her family disgraced. I crawled forward towards the noise. A firm hand immediately pressed me down on the ground. It was Yan, the commander. I struggled, trying to fight her off, but she was too strong. Her grip was firm as a rock. She seemed to know exactly what was going on. The murmuring and hard breathing came louder. Yan clenched her teeth together and drawing a breath. I felt the force of her body in a second. She loosened her grip on my back and shouted suddenly, "Now!" It was as if a bomb had exploded next to me. Yan turned her flashlight on Little Green and the man. About 30 other flashlights, including mine, were switched on at the same time. Little Green screamed. It broke the night. She was in her favorite shirt, the one embroidered with pink plum flowers. The lights shone on her naked buttocks. Her scream pierced me to the core, my heart in slices. The man with Little Green was skinny, wore glasses, and looked very bookish. He pulled up his pants and tried to run. He was caught immediately by the group led by Deputy Commander Lu, who pulled out her rifle and held it to the bookish man's head. He was not from our company, but I remembered having seen him at the market. He had smiled at Little Green, but when I asked whether she knew him, she said no. Little Green was trembling and weeping. She scrambled back and forth for her clothes, trying to cover her butt with her hands. I lowered my flashlight. Yan slowly approached the man. She asked him why he had to do that to Little Green. Her voice was trembling. To my surprise, I saw her eyes glistening with tears. The man bit his lip. He did not say anything. Yan threw her belt down and ordered the male soldier to beat the man. She walked away, but stopped and said she would be pleased if the soldiers could make the man understand that today's woman was no longer the victim of man's desire. She took off her jacket to cover Little Green. She said to her softly, "Let's go home." The bookish man did not look guilty. As the kicking and the whipping began, he struggled not to cry out. I returned to the barracks with the other soldiers. From a distance, we could hear muted cries from the men and Lu shouting, "Death to rapist!" Little Green could not stop whimpering. A public trial was held in dining hall. Little Green had undergone 4 days of intensive mind repression. I will never forget his expression when the death sentence was announced. As if waking from a nightmare, he looked suddenly relaxed. His bruised purple face had brightened when Little Green walked into the hall. I sat next to Yan. I heard her exchanging words with Lu. They said that the man was too deeply poisoned by bourgeoisie thoughts. Yan signed in a sad tone. Lu said the good thing was that the party had managed to stop the poison from spreading. It always happens when I try to find the page. Come on. I don't know how to manage this. I'm running a little bit out of time. I just want to summarize it. And later on, Little Green went mad, and Yan just took over after her. At evening, no, not this one. Sorry about this. Because I was thinking about seeing you okay, here. Okay. No one talked about the man after the execution. Although he was on everyone's mind, Little Green stopped washing. Months passed, still she had not washed. There were complaints about her smell. When I carried back 2 containers of hot water and asked if she would allow me to wash her underwear for her, she took a pair of scissors and cut them into strips. She chopped off her long braids and stopped combing her hair. Mucus dripped from her lips. At night, she sang songs off key. Then it got worse. She would not quit singing after midnight. She sang old operas. One after another, she played with curtains of nets in the room. Mosquitoes got into the nets. The roommates became furious. They tied Little Green up on her bed, but she laughed and then sang louder. The roommates spat on her face and told her to shut up, but she went on until daybreak. When we woke, all the shoes were gone. Little Green took them. She threw the shoes into a pound behind the company's storage. Little Green was going mad, but no one wanted to face the thought. I could not describe my feelings. I had destroyed her. We murdered her. We were mad. We strangled her into madness. The roommates reported her behavior. Yan refused to believe Little Green was insane. She shut us all up. She asked Orchid and Lou and me to go with her to send Little Green to Farms Hospital. We escorted Little Green on a tractor, 4 of us holding her as if carrying an animal to a slaughter's. Yan had her jacket on Little Green. She protected her from the strong wind and then covered her as if she were newborn. The doctors performed many tests on Little Green, but could not figure out what was wrong with her. They told Yan that nothing more could be done and asked her to take Little Green back. Yan roared. She threatened that she would accuse them of all being reactionaries if they did not come up with an acceptable diagnosis. The doctors pleaded with her. Finally, they referred Little Green to the Shanghai hospital, where she was diagnosed as having a nervous breakdown. When Little Green returned from the hospital a month later, I did not recognize her. The drugs that she had been prescribed had made her gain weight. She was as fat as a bear. She was again given a bed in my room, where she sat quietly most of the day, staring in one direction. Her pupils sometimes moved upwards into her skull, as if to read her own brain. Her hair was matted. I thought of the evenings when she would wash her hair after dinner, comb and dry it as the sun set. I remember the song she sang very well, My Motherland. It goes like this. 一条大河波浪翻，风吹稻花香两岸。我家就在岸上住，听惯了艄公的号子，看惯了船上的白帆。Thank you.
Am Anfang. Exil, ich und das Flugzeug. Einsteigen, sitzen, anschnallen, auffliegen. Noch nie war ein Eisenvogel so irdisch zu mir, noch nie war ein Vogel so langsam wie dieser. Abendessen, eine Zigarette und der Schlaf. Die Müdigkeit von vielen Nächten der Verbannung, die Müdigkeit von 5111 Nächten. Der Schlaf kam ohne Träume. Wozu träumen jetzt? Brief eines Emigranten. Ich krieche mühsam hierher, setze mich geräuschvoll hin, strecke meine Gefühle von mir, nehme viel Platz ein und werde nicht benötigt.
In the beginning, exile, myself and this airplane, boarding, seated, harness fastened, airborne. No iron bird ever more earthbound to me, nor a bird ever so slow as this one. An evening meal, a cigarette, asleep. Tired out by the many nights of exile. Tired out by the 5,111 nights. Sleep brought no dreams. What should one dream of now? Letter from an immigrant. I crawl here laboriously, sit noisily down, stretch out my feelings, take up a lot of room, and find I am not needed. For Lola Jakubowski-Horowitz, your smile, warming sun in the diaspora. Your eyes, unjustly punished children, calm my nomad's hands. Your hands, large and willing, caress my edges. How alike we are, two cast-out wolves from different packs. We are all wandering Jews. I am homesick for your embrace. The guest. The door was open. He did not need scratch at it. He came in, sat down at the table on the empty chair, ate and drank, smoked and listened in. Then he left and closed the door. For Dimitris Koustomitopoulos, the day is artificial. At night, we interrupt the owls. The last stone war was lost by us. On our backs, foreign buffalo grass flourishes, and fingernails grow by themselves. The pigeons initiated, the trees constrained, even the four-headed dragon eats from the hands of strangers. For Victor Pfaff, the homecoming poet seeks, with a single word, under the tongue, the mulberry trees of childhood in his pockets, a warm place to die. Behind him, the betrayed skies of banishment, and a moon left unredeemed.
Für Victor Pfaff. Der heimkehrende Dichter sucht mit einem einzigen Wort unter der Zunge in den Taschen die Maulbeerbäume der Kindheit nach einem warmen Platz zum Sterben. Hinter sich der verratene Himmel der Verbannung und ein nicht mehr ausgelöster Mond.
Excerpts from Letter to Europe. Do you remember them, Europe? Our first contacts? I was about 14 or 15 then, an adolescent setting out with callow rage at dictatorship to search for liberty. Liberty, the color of mankind, as Louis Aragon called this precious possession we could only search for in Europe. Weren't the fanfares of the French Revolution still resounding in our ears? Liberty, equality, fraternity. So the adolescent set out in search for liberty, in search of Europe. At the beginning of the 60s, it was dangerous in Tehran under the Shah's dictatorship to search for liberty. So we searched for its traces. Books. The works of Iranian authors writing about liberty were banned. They themselves were imprisoned if they had survived and had not immigrated. So we searched for books by European writers. But the Europeans had not been spared either by the dictator's censorship, so we risked being watched by the secret services, or worse, being arrested. So the adolescent ran home, Albert Camus hidden under his shirt, all along presuming the entire Secret Service at his heels. For he knew of some who had spent up to 2 years in prison because of just one of these books. Having reached home, he feverishly anticipated the evening hours in order to go to bed during those muggy Tehran nights with Albert Camus. No, with Europe. In fact, with liberty itself. Then, fist clenched, he read his Europeans. The adolescent did not understand them, but he knew that this Europe meant liberty, and he loved his Europe. He is in Europe now, around the middle of the 60s, to learn. At first, the language. Barely mastering it in a manner, he throws himself into the books, those uncensored ones. And he suffers a shock. Albert Camus, the one he had caught hold of at home after a long search and under risky circumstances, and whom his friends grabbed from his hands again, was lying there, mute, on the bargain counter to be had for a pittance, and nobody cared. What? Its apostles of liberty? Had Europe forgotten, abandoned, dumped them? For the student who, against all fatherly advice, wanted to study German literature, this was beyond belief. He kept on searching for his Europe. Soon, he was to be consoled. The student's revolt overwhelmed him, and it consoled him. To him, who still carried the shadow of dictatorship in his heart, this was the first open encounter with liberty, solidarity, and friendship. And now he knew this is Europe, his Europe. That encounter shaped him forever. He hoped again. And he learned from that Europe, above all from its writers, who helped him to the upright gait he and his friends so bitterly needed in the years to come. And his Europe taught him something else, namely, that liberty is always the freedom to dissent. Europe is liberty, after all. The adolescent in Tehran had not been mistaken, and the students savored and defended that liberty hand in hand with his European friends. What did he care about the secret services at home, observing closely the development of the exile to be? Nothing mattered but liberty. But that very liberty and his European friends showed him another face of Europe, an ugly one. He learns that his country's secret services maintain the best relations with the intelligence service, with the Dossiernbüro, with the Verfassungsschutz, who assist their colleagues in Tehran by the way of intelligence data and information. But there was more. He learns that the instruments of torture come from Europe too, his Europe. The instruments of torture with which the dictator's thugs torture women, only to call them filthy European whores afterwards. What a Europe! While it admits our tortured, if they were able to escape, into its special clinics and develops new procedures to heal their wounds, It sells to the torturers the tools they need: handcuffs, truncheons, electroshock appliances, poison gas first, then the masks for it, gas tracing tanks afterwards, and finally, the medicine. You sell everything, Europe, and in the bargain you catch the disease for which history one day will declare you of unsound mind. Schizophrenic Europe, sometimes innocent first love, sometimes convertible harlot. But Europe, not only do you sell everything, you want to buy everything too. And the one currently in exile reads in your papers about the places your citizens invade all over the world, hard currency in their pockets. Zimbabwe to play golf, Peru to buy children, Thailand to purchase young flesh, Paraguay to found farms, India to harvest organs. And with amazement, he notices that you call 2/3 of this world developing countries, in order that you may come to its aid everywhere, with the result they get poorer and poorer, and you even richer. And he asks himself, this divergence, is it the logical effect of your liberty? Why else should you draw your sword when someone attempts by democratic means to bridge this gap? There certainly has been no lack of such democrats during the last decades. You dropped them, each and every one. While you rejected our outstretched hand, you grope at the hand of the murderers who ask you for weapons and credits and plunge our countries into utter debt and dependency. Europe, you suffocate us with your economic logic. For your sake, Europe, for the sake of our love for you, we were isolated within our own people because we remained loyal to our first love, not least to avoid betraying ourselves. Truly, Europe, you are not always a master of your much-lauded tolerance. And the exiled one, in exile for a quarter of a century by now, free, has grown tired, Europe. He has grown tired, as he neither belongs to those who ape you blindly to wipe out their own identity, nor to those who hate you so much that they have to deny their history. He has grown tired because you, Europe, understand their language better than ours. He has grown tired because you always want to be victor, never friend. Because you set reason of the day against decency and against fraternity. Yet, where there is no love, no understanding can grow. Alas, Europe, remember the Crusades are over, the popes tamed. We must not make that mistake again. Don't draw your sword. Ask about the bread, for hunger determines the manner of death. And remember that conscience knows no limit of time and space. And the aging refugee, meanwhile a composite of two worlds, continues to love and search for his Europe. And he hopes that this Europe is more than a financial chimera that does not change into a fortress, but remains a gift for all those searching for liberty. God's is the Orient, God's is the Occident. To Goethe's sentence, the East-Western refugee adds his profane one. The no man's land in between is ours. We can only fertilize it with love. Thank you.
We'll take a we'll take about a 5 max 10-minute break, then we'll come back for the discussion. Thank you very much. Kind of the, well, very informal kind of a setting here. And what we'll do is I will start off with a general question, and then hopefully encourage discussion, and then we'll open it up for the audience, because there already, I think, 3 or 4 people have come to me and insisted that I jot down questions. I know that many of you are really would like to ask questions of the writers. I was very much moved by what I heard of the readings. Very powerful, really full of emotion. And I was sitting there listening to these readings. I was wondering, how does one really control that? In other words, how does one actually look back at those moments in your homeland, in moments in China or Tehran, the moments of joy and the moments of happiness and of course of great fear and terror? How does one risk the recalling, risk here, in the United States, risk remembering that, jotting that down without, in a sense, drowning or being really destroyed by it, and creating a terrible anger, let's say, toward the mother country for the condition that these people, these writers are living in. So I guess that's my first question. How do you manage that? How do you control that? That recalling again, and yet being able to write it down, without, really, in a sense, hurting yourselves and creating this anger again.
That's the craft. I think that's the craft of artistry. I mean, every writer. I mean, that's the only way that you can survive, and you can ask that question from any writer, no matter is he's exiled or not. That's the only reason that you can survive and give meaning to your life. I can give you one example to express myself more vividly. I was in it was 1982, and I was underground in Tehran. And I had not been writing poetry for quite maybe 5 or 6 years since I had become a political activist, because at that time I thought that, until proletariat has not been triumphed, I do not need to write poetry. And it was like maybe 2 weeks after my first wife, that was my very close friend as well, had been executed. And I was in this underground house, and all of a sudden poetry came back to me again. And I mean, this is really art. I understood what does art mean. That was the only, it was of course it was very painful. But at the same time, it was very joyful, because that was the only way that I could create Izzat and other friends who were executed. That was the only way that I could take revenge from their killers. And I felt the same way that I think maybe a Neanderthal Homo sapiens felt when he started to draw pictures of a ball on the walls of their cave. I think it's the same feeling that an artist has today. It's the same feeling that a caveman had. They are the same. So I think that's enough for me.
Yeah, I share with that. Every word he said, I what happened to me was when I came here, I was at the beginning. I didn't really try. All I wanted to do is try to forget China. Mm-hmm. I was busy at the day I arrived in America. I was busy surviving, because first I got stopped at the custom. Officer says, "You came here for college and you don't speak English."
So I was about to be deported, and I was took aside in that room for 20 minutes. For me, it was like 20 years because I bet my life on it. Then I was given a chance for 6 months to get my English and to go to school. And I, just busy with these things. 2 years after that, one day, I was living in an attic, and all these things. I found that I couldn't sleep. I was restless. I felt very obligated, and I was like living a surreal life. Every day I see these faces with different color of eyes and different color of hairs, but the juxtaposition, they're superimposed with the underlayer of the cracked earth, the farm, and the people I left behind, the thing that I wish that I should have done, I could have done, and especially the things that what I did to Little Graying and all these, then I start to seek for books, and I did notice that all these people share the same feeling in the books on China, on Cultural Revolution, but unfortunately most people claim themselves as just victims. And I really think that I disagree. I was one of them. I was one of the little gray red guards, one of the people who shout, "Long live Chairman Mao." And I cannot forgive myself. And
So how does your writing, as Majid say, sort of a vengeance, or sort of writing this down? Does it function that way? Is it?
Yeah, you write it. It's for nothing. You don't. You just have to write to survive, to go on with life, because you did all these things. You want to clarify what you have done, and I guess in a way that what's behind it was like to use my own experience so when other people read it, Chinese people read it, will start to analyze, to see, to turn inward. It's not just Mao's fault, the Communist Party. It's the human thing. The greed, the selfishness. Just to share these things and to be around some conscience, and start with myself, and it's very painful, very shameful.
SAID, would you like to add?
Well, first of all, I have to apologize myself for my bad English. That's the first time I'm in the United States, and it's the first time I tried to speak English. Eli Shapira helped me with a citation of George Washington. "A man is a fool who can't spell a word more than one way." So, having George Washington at my side, I'm encouraged to answer to your question in English. As a writer, the most easier thing you can do is to hate. It's very easy to do that. But you have to do something else. You must try to understand things, or the relationship between the things. For being able to do that, you have to look very precisely to the events that happened, and partly to kill or to push away your emotions. That's just only for me. I don't know if it's good for any other writers. That's my way. Then you can see clearly, and if you see clearly, and if you could describe it precisely, you have done everything. That's why I'm going to try. That's all.
In your letter to Europe, you use the word "in between," living in sort of the in between, and the interstice of different cultures, Iranian culture, United States culture, Chinese culture, here, Southern California, United States culture, and you living in Germany. You people are living sort of in this interstice where cultures sort of overlap, and you are in the in-between of culture. What do you do? You write in Farsi. You can write in English. You have a choice of what language you're going to use. How do you make that choice? Are you still writing for, let's say, the land that you left, or are you writing for the land that you are living in? So I'm wondering what.
Oh, that's a good question. Go ahead.
You go
I'm
ahead.
thinking.
Go ahead. Go.
I'm still thinking.
You're thinking?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you sure?
Did you want to comment? Since you used the term in between, in other words, this
Well,
isn't.
that's one of those problems you have when you are in exile, because you are between. Of course, I do consider myself as Iranian, but I know when I come back to Iran one day, they don't consider me as Iranian. I'm a foreigner there. That's the point. I'm not aware of that. I believe I'm Iranian. I do speak Persian, but I have my friends. I used to read Iranian literature as long as I can, as long as I can get them through the mail. But I'm, in a certain way, I'm not Iranian, so I'm something between. And when you are something between, of course, you have to find a way to express these being in between. I used to say, I choose the German language, or better told, German language chose me because I'm very close to the language, and this language has given me the liberty and has given me the language to express myself as good as I can. And I would consider myself very, very poor when I wouldn't have this medium, how to say, medium, this medium of expressing myself. So I can only say I'm thankful for this language. And I think many of us, when I say many of us, I mean many of exiled people, not all of them are writers. Many of us, they have this problem, how to express themselves. I'm lucky that I have this medium to express myself, so I can only say I'm thankful for that.
So who are you writing for? In other words, you choose Farsi, Persian to write in, is that correct?
Right, I do. Well, for me, it took years to write for, not to write, let's put it this way, not to write for a reader who is living in an Iranian situation in Tehran. If you look at, I have done this myself, and I have surveyed the first collection of poems that I published here. It was published in Sweden, After Silence. I have surveyed, and maybe only it contains 110 poems, but only in 10 instances, you see any reference to the new situation. There was a kind of automatic censorship in my mind, that I wanted to write to the level that a Tehrani reader can understand. So if I wanted, to write about Santa Monica Farmers Market, I would cross it out. So, but after, so in other words, I had that Tehrani reader within me, even when I was here. But after a while, I'm still trying to come to terms with the new situation. But why I write in Persian, why do I write still in Persian? Because I think, I write in Persian, I write poetry in Persian. Because I think that poetry, or at least poetry for me, is very connected to your feelings. And if you cannot, feel the situation, you cannot express it. I do not, at this point, I do not want to express my political opinions or, those kind of things, which are very easy, to write in another language. And so only recently, I started to write something which I cannot call what it is. It may be diary, or maybe it's a kind of novel. It's my own way of writing. That's the only creative writing that I have begun to write originally in English. But I think that I have a love with Persian language for poetry, and I cannot, get separated from that. So it's not, I think there is not any generalization. This is my individual being, This is my artistic needs, and I think every artist has different needs
to make those choices.
Right.
Anchee?
You asked who I write for, and I don't write for anybody because it scares me to think that I'm writing for a reader, because I really don't think I'm good enough. You know, why people have to listen to me? I really think it just scares me. I write because I'm driven. I don't know why. I feel rich and poor at the same time when I struggle in between Chinese and English. For example, I always think this way, and I grew up, I lived in China for 27 years. So the language that shapes you, for example, you talk, this is normal talk in Chinese. For example, 风是通过树叶的抖动来展示它的形体. It translates, the wind shows its body through the trees. And your parents, your grandparents talk that way. And in the beginning, I tried to, that. Then I found it's the beauty of it. I can't really. I don't want to give up.
So you feel that English doesn't capture that beauty? I mean, your song.
Not quite. That's why I said I was. I feel poor.
Song,
I feel frustrated.
The song that you sang, I think everybody understood it. The emotion behind the song was magnificent, beautiful.
Well, I'm glad I'm having this opportunity that people can see me. I can kind of express it. But when you don't see me, you just feel like you got 50% of the color and it's blank.
You feel limited in English in some way.
Right.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, I noticed that you're in America, in my daughter's school, she started to speak straightforward, no nonsense English. And and I feel like my kind of thing, it adds a lot of tone and color and sensuous quality to American English, and I feel this is a good contribution.
I have two more questions, then I'll turn it over to the audience. And my next question would be: some people would say that in today's world, exiles, refugees, and you use the word refugees and so forth now, are increasing. Do you agree with this? And whether you agree or disagree, what is your particular role in that you play in this situation? That is, if exiles are increasing, if refugees are, let's say, coming to this country, etc., or where do you fit in? Yes.
I think there's a big picture and a small picture. The big picture is that you excel anywhere. I mean, you're being American or Chinese, it doesn't matter, because the world that surrounds you that has, for example, the capitalism is driven by the greed, as Karl Marx says. So, and like you said at the beginning, you're losing the conscious. Like he mentioned in his poem about liberty and the siege in Europe and all that. In that sense, you're always on exile, and that's my big picture. And you're with yourself, and that's how you get educated. And then you just learn to be strong and to ignore. That since the little thing, like for example, my daughter, 5 years old, in the kindergarten, and she throw the lunch I prepared for her, in the trash can, and she told me every kid in the class competing throw their lunch in the trash can. I mean, how can you since 5 years old, you brainwash it that way? That's shocking to me. But in the meantime, I learned that I just have to cope with that. That's the other point to add to my big picture. And the small picture is that I do feel that I left China, and in a way that. But I guess my past experience made me became very practical. There's a soldier quality, fighter quality in me that I don't whine. I just say that how would I deal with this thing? I'm not going to be sensitive about, crying over how painful I felt that, you have to. I have no relatives here, no parent, no family here. But try to make a positive, try to generate positive energy. And besides making myself learning to be a decent person, and try to make myself useful through my writing.
As you live in a country, the years go by, 33 years in Germany and so forth, and you become incorporated in this country. You establish a home, you have an account in the bank and credit, and you invest and you work, and you begin to, in a sense, develop roots in this foreign country. Does the desire to return home lessen? Do the reasons that drove you away from home become less urgent?
Well, there are two things. The one is the desire to coming back to the country you consider as your country. The second thing is the reality. I don't believe after 30 years or 40 years or whatever that there is a possibility to come back to the country. As I told before, you are in a certain way foreigner. The days I'm here, I met many German people are living here 10 years or 15 years, and they do say we cannot go back to Germany. Although the difference between Germany and America is not that great between my country and Germany, for instance. But I would like to come back to the question before. What can I do regarding the number of exiled people or refugees? First of all, more or less 100 million people are refugees at the moment. That's a great number. Don't forget it. It's not a literary question. It's a question of society. So what's my duty? My duty is to regarding to the problem and try to clarify, as you say, in my way, with my words, for a greater audience. I'm working now on a case. Iranian guy flew away and he was pushed between Germany, Holland, England, Belgium, and France. He is now living since 8 years, I'm not joking, since 8 years at the airport in Paris. 8 years, you know. And that in a continent like Europe, everybody is speaking Europe. We are Europe, we are liberty, all the borders are free, and this guy may not leave Europe, airport. And a German paper made an interview with a doctor from airport, and the doctor said, this man cannot leave airport. When he leaves airport, he's going to die. He's not able to take the life outside of airport. You know, everyone is writing about that, not only me. They made a film about that. But nothing's happened. So as long as reality is like that, of course I have the duty to look to the reality. It's another question how I elaborate that. Me personally, coming back to the question, me personally, I do need a long distance to elaborate that. I cannot give it back one by one. I need my own time, my own way to elaborate that, to work with that, and now I'm going to write a play about that. But as long as themes are like that is evident, I cannot close my eyes and say, well, I don't like that. I do something else. So that's the themes they choose me, not me, the themes.
Does anyone want to respond?
Yes. Well, it becomes kind of monologue between us. But just look at the word exile. Out of base, out of your root, out of your home, out of your origin. But for me, exile has two aspects. One is political and cultural entity, and the other one is ontological. And I think, when I was in Iran, I felt I'm in exile in terms of ontological feelings that I had. In terms of cultural and political exile, I think the most important factor, at least for me, is language barrier. That's the most important factor of being culturally separated from your own home country. The way you deal with it, I just want to add something to the discussion. It may be useful for you, because recently, I read the Iliad, the Odyssey, and the Aeneid, the first two by Homer and the second one by Virgil. And they are really very interesting to picture the situation of and Exiled. As you know, I just, if you have time, I just tell in a few minutes. Of course, the first, the Iliad is about the Trojan War, and how, and the second one, and you know that the Greek got the upper hand, and the Trojans are defeated. The second book, the Odyssey, is the coming back home of the Odyssey, the victor. Okay? He's coming back. He's in exile. He is captured by a nice angel, not angel, anyhow, a metaphysical being, and she doesn't let him go back to Ithaca. But he wants to come back. He's a victor. He wants to come back to his homeland. So this is his project. And I think this is one of the projects that some exiled people have. They have the Odyssey project. They want to come back home. This is the epic of their life. Then you have the Aeneid by Virgil, which is written in Roman, in Latin. This is the story of the defeated people. This is interesting. The Odyssey is the story of the victorious people. This is the story of the other side of the coin. Now the Trojans, who cannot stay in their homeland, they want to go and build a home. And the destiny says you have to go to Italy. And that's how Italy starts. So they go, if they want, okay, there is two projects for us. Either we have to come back to our homeland, or we have to make our host land our own land. If you want to go out of the base, if you want to come back to the base again, either you have to come back to your own country, the Odyssey project, or you have to make the new land your own home, your homeland. And it is not something that you can do biologically. Like the Aeneas, first he goes to Libya, and the queen of Libya, wants him to marry her, and they stay there. But only by biological marriage, you cannot make the new land your own land. It is a long process that takes to the death. So I think I go over my my time because I know here you have the dictatorship of time.
Would you like to make another comment?
Yeah, two comments.
All right.
One
is, then I'll open it up to the audience. Go ahead.
I like it when you say that it's the epic of life, it's a epic of our kind of life. And for me, I feel that I've never left China. And now I'm like, now I've been working. I'm completing a new project, and it's called Madam Mao. It's about love, sex, and marriage. But it's modern Chinese history. Every day from 9 to 5, I'm like a train driving through China. Every day, 9 to 5. And then when I see my daughter, oh, okay.
Back in the States.
Hi. Yeah. She said, Mom, you don't speak English. Your English is not good enough. Okay, I'm back from China.
Well, I have a lot more questions, but I'm going to turn it over to you. So raise your hand, and I've been asked if the question is a long statement, I'm going to cut you off. So get to the point, get to your question, please. Raise your hand. Yes, ma'am.
Have you had any contact with the family?
Yes. My father's happy as long as Relazilia had no Chinese translation. He's happy it had 20 translations all over the world except Chinese. It was rejected. And they wrote me a letter from Shanghai People's Publishing House, and for two reasons. One is the book is controversial. Second reason is China wants to fight for Olympic site, and it doesn't want its people to be disturbed. And I took it as a compliment.
Any question? A question there, please?
Yeah.
Loud and clear.
Majid mentioned you talked about Europe's schizophrenic nature. I was wondering if the Exiles could comment on the concept of Europa and European civilization and whether they've lost the garland from their viewpoint in living in the West now for a period of time.
Sorry, you want to start that?
I didn't get the question, I'm sorry.
The question again is what? I'm sorry.
Maybe if I answered India.
Yeah, you mentioned India and then Europe, right? And has Europe lost the garland of what? Of leading the world in liberty and world leadership? Yeah. You still understand it?
You want to go ahead? You are.
Nachdem du jetzt in Europa lebst, und siehst, wie die Europäer sich benehmen, ob da die Glorie, dass Europa für Freiheit und Freibestand für dich jetzt eine andere Meinung hat.
No. No, thank you. I'm still looking for that Europe. I don't give up. Because so what is Europe at all without this message? Nothing. I don't care about Deutsche Mark or Französische Franc or whatever that is. I don't care about this politician they speak. What is resting from Europe is the culture, nothing more. I'm connected with the European culture. I don't care about the glory time of Europa or the colonial time of Europe. That's not my matter. I think this continent, you know that I have a certain relationship to this continent. I love them. I love the continent, and I hate it. Because I think I don't get any answer in the way I love. Of course, I get this answer from my friends. Of course, you have your own friends. But I would like to see that what I learned by Europe, what I learned in that Europe, it's now useless, more or less. I'm not the one who's giving up, no. I'm going to keep on that. And I really believe the day will come that Europe might turn his head back and look to the, how do you say, Werte? The values. To the old values of Europe, which was fascinating for all of us, which we were living outside of Europe. That's the point. These values, coming back to these values. I don't give it up. I just keep on to search them.
For me, that poem was more personal than political. You know, I felt, because I wrote that piece around the anniversary of Christopher Columbus. I think it was 92, so it was like 500 years after he embarked his trip. It was, you know, sort of personal for me. I felt, you know, that I'm in the same shoe that the guy was. I didn't want to make a statement about the situation in America or not. So, and I think, you know, I think I stopped there. Yeah.
The question way in the back, the gentleman with the, that's it. Sir.
One thing that Karl Marx said was all of world history is a history of human struggle. But too many times political issues are separated from the human being as a person, the human dimension. But since so much human suffering are directly related to political, social, commercial, economic institutions, since your writing addressed both capitalism, communism, as well as the human suffering, or feudal, you know, the kingdoms and the feudal pre-capitalistic feudal society.
It's a big question. Should your writing address both capitalism, communism, and human suffering?
Yeah, I guess we have been doing that, and I feel like, you know, the whole thing is an experiment. The universe is an experiment. We are all elements in the labs, and for me, I just wanted to, you know, be one of the this little thing, the tube. So you can scientists, people you can see, and through my thing, you can, you know, the Chinese people read the story, and wherever I go, people who did read it and feel they related, and you know what not to do.
Question, the lady way in the back.
You.
Yes. Is that a lady or, I'm sorry, yeah. I can't see that far.
I just thought it would be wonderful for those of us who haven't heard Majid's original voice, if you would be willing to say a poem in Farsi.
You want to say a real short poem in Farsi?
Okay. Okay. Sure. Let's see.
You put him on the spot and he has to remember that.
Because I don't have it in front of me. But yes, maybe it's, someone asks a question and I will remember it.
What about just relate to us your something about poetry in Farsi?
Or do you want me to say in English or in Farsi? In Farsi?
Yes.
No, I think she wanted me to read one of my poems in Farsi. Okay, let's see. Oh God, it has escaped my mind. Okay, I read one about my son Azad. هر روز به کنار رودخانه می رویم و تنت بوی آب می گیرد. به دیدن ما غازهای وحشی شیپورهای جنگیشون را ساز می کنند و گربه‌ای فاتحانه از پس کمینگاه سبز دمش را بالا می برد. ماهیگیران پیر با سطرهای خالیشان جا به جا می شوند و شاخی نخلی در گذرگاه وا می داردم تا سرخم کنم. میستم و همچنان که تو برشانم به خواب می روی با خود می اندیشم از من گذشته است شاید تو راز رود را دریابی.
Okay, we have time for one more question. Please.
I've lived in Southern California my whole life, and when I hear the three of you speak, I wish that I'm jealous of your experiences because I feel like I've had such a boring life. And I wonder if when you reflect on what has happened to you, that there are some positive things that your experiences have given you besides sorrow. I mean, so much of it seems like sorrow. Are there any positive things?
Oh yeah, for me, I was the caller on Talk of the Nations is wow. Sounds like a communist really did you good. You're so grateful to life to be able to breathe and then be able to be aware that you have a toilet of your own. And these are, I think it makes me really give me the sunshine. And by the way, your question reminds me of the character in my book, Catherine, because she is a English teacher who was teaching who was teaching in China, and she compares her experience and with the Chinese students and all these kind of things. Anyway, it was very. It's a story by itself.
Just quick answer. Yes, endurance. Endurance, I think, is the most important thing for me. I ran for marathon, and this year I ran for the 8th time. And when I got, because it's I'm answering your question. When I got to the 14th mile, it became very painful for me. But I knew from my experience that if I endure, I will survive. And I did. I mean, I walked a few miles again, but then I don't know from where the energy came back to me, and I started, running again for the last 6 miles. So I think that comes from my past experiences, that you have to endure, and it will change.
Yeah, I guess if it doesn't kill you, you're above it.
Exactly.
Sorry.
No, exactly.
I have yes.
Coming back to this question, the main thing is going through the things. If it is something sad in my life, I have to go through that. When I go through that, I'm rich. So I feel myself, just repeating your word, I feel myself in a certain way a rich man. by my experiences. I don't want to miss them. But the main point is going through them. We understand each other? Thank you.
Yeah, I remember that day I became American citizen. I was going through this ceremony. I was thinking I was experiencing such a joy. I'm a citizen. I can work here. and this is, I guess, without my past experience, I wouldn't feel such richness, like you mentioned.
I'm going to go ahead, since I'm the moderator, I'm going to ask the last question. And it's a question that some people might consider very controversial. I'm just going to ask it. And that is, when does the condition of exile become a commodity?
Become what?
A commodity. In other words, you spoke of film, about the gentleman in the fellow in Germany or in the Paris airport, I forget what it was, who they're now making a film of him. Even you as writers in this country, which has the notorious reputation of turning, let's say, a condition of exile into a commodity. We'll package it, we will write it down, we will sell it, and we'll make millions of it from it, right? The same with films, or the same with theater, et cetera, et cetera. How do you, in a sense, deal with that? Because I'm not saying that one should not publish books or one should not make films of these issues, because they're very, very important. But how does one deal with it? Where do you draw the line? In other words, the question again is, when does the condition of exile become a commodity, and what do you do with it? How do you resist it, or how do you deal with it?
Well, for me, I was, that the essence of Maoism is disregard money and be selfless, and I think that took some root in me. And in a way, when Reda Zele, I have to accept this how do you say, American publishing business, the way they operate, and they won't look at you if you don't win a competition. So I do it the regular way. I enter and then win the contest, American Writing Contest, so the agent look at me. And then the publisher of the Random House and Pantheon, and they auctioned the book, and of course, wow, a lot of money. When you're working like $3 per hour, and you see a lot of money. And then I shut myself in the room. I thought it was not good enough. And my agent says, "Hey, it's a product. It's I'm with you, but you can't really change it." But it really didn't play that important role in my life. And I try to stay with it. And I feel I'm not affected. And for example, when Hollywood optioned, one of the producer who approached me says, "Oh, Reda Zele, it's a very sexy, sensuous part in the Red Fire Farm." But the thing is, it's all Chinese women. What about adding an white American male and take you revisit Red Fire Farm? I mean, it goes as far as there. I mean, that's so expected. I say, well, thank you, sir.
Did you want to comment on that?
I think as an author, as a writer, you are alone. You are lonesome. And you must understand that. And you must keep to that. So you must resist. In Germany, everyone is expecting me to write a new poetry or a new book about exile. I don't. I have to resist. The only value I do have is my own ethical way to regard to the things. And the main duty of writers is to resist or to fight against the fashion. If it's the right word, I don't know, la moda. The fashion, You have to fight against the fashion. Because if not, you are just a part of this great machinery. I'm not a part of machinery. I'm alone, and I want to be alone. I'm going to keep on that. So I'm going to resist against the film. Nothing against money, That's not the point, I want to be successful, of course. But I want to be successful in my way. I'm not going to let it determine it by a publisher or by agency or somebody else. So you have to resist. That's your duty.
Yeah, I agree. I think in that respect, an artist is not different from any other human being. For me, art and poetry in specific is a place that I sit with my innocence, with all of my innocent feelings. So I cannot betray myself. I tell myself, we can be impure in any other circumstances that you want, but you can't betray yourself in that little altar that you have for yourself. And besides, I haven't, unfortunately or fortunately, my exile commodity has not become commodity so far. So I don't need to be worried about that. I need it more.
Very good. Well, with that,
I think it's like a painting. If you're an artist and you paint a picture, if you really wanted to sell and you see dollar sign, all your images.
Again, I'd like to thank Majid, Naficy, and Anchee, Min, and Said for a wonderful, wonderful reading and presentation.
Thank you.
Aloud is made possible through support provided by the Ralph M. Parsons Foundation, the National Endowment for the Arts, and Errant Fox. Additional support provided by the Los Angeles Public Library, the Stay Home and Read a Book Ball, Sharon Oxborough, the estate of Suzanne Aaron, Donna and Martin J. Wolfe, Julia Meltzer, and individual Library Foundation members. Media support is provided by LA Weekly, KCRW 89.9 FM, and KUSC 91.5 FM. Music by Boya Pongo. Support these free programs by becoming a member of the Library Foundation of Los Angeles. Visit lfla.org for more information.